Shalom. Start off, I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Shalom to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect, and to all the Akim and the few Akwaf that may be tuning in. May this lesson be edifying. This is the brother Halarium from the Great Millstone Chicago camp, coming at you with another lesson of truth. And right now, as of right now, tensions in America, between the average U.S. citizen and Trump's personal militia, aka ICE, is currently at an all-time high. In all of these cases with these ICE agents shooting people left and right, that Edomite woman that got shot dead, by that ICE agent, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, allegedly less than a mile away from where George Floyd was killed. You had that ICE agent, basically stick his arm in the car and, killed this woman, murdered her in cold blood, stuck his arm in the car and everything, popped her ass. But, tensions in America are at an all-time high, and eventually when these Babylonians, rise up, lose their shit, which is what the elites want. These elite bankers all the way down to, Nero 47, aka Donald Trump. Eventually, martial law is going to end up being enforced. And what we're seeing now with, these ICE agents being deployed is just the beginning phase that is eventually going to lead to martial law. So I wanted to let this video play. It says, liberals seeking justice for LA man who was shot after shooting at an off-duty agent with the AR-15, which, that's some dumb shit to do. But nonetheless, I'm going to let this video play. May this lesson be edifying.
Murdered our love.
And when he... Keith Porter's mother, overcome with grief at the candlelight vigil in Carson where she raised him. This is the second memorial in a week for the father of two shot and killed in Northridge by an off-duty ICE agent on New Year's Eve.
Took our loved one from us. You murdered our loved one, and it's not fair. It's not right.
According to the Department of Homeland Security, the off-duty ICE agent heard gunfire near his apartment and went to check it out. That's when DHS says the officer encountered Porter holding a long rifle. Advocates say Porter's gunfire that night was his way of observing the holiday.
Well, yes, it was illegal, but at the end of the day, it's American tradition.
I'm 80 years old. It's happened as long as I can remember. That's one of the things that happens. People shoot guns as part of fireworks and celebration of the new year.
But the agent allegedly ordered Porter to put down the weapon.
So basically, Jake, in the midst of celebrating, that New Year's Eve folly, he ended up getting judged by that off-duty ICE agent. But nonetheless, this is only the beginning, and it's only going to get worse from this point on. Tensions between, the U.S. citizens and these militias is ultimately going to lead to, a civil war. But I wanted to read this article from USA Today, and it says, immigration enforcement ramp up has only begun, VP J.D. Vance promises. It says federal officials say Americans can expect to see even more muscular immigration enforcement in the coming months, with over 10,000 new ICE agents hitting the streets armed with personal data harvested by private contractors. Speaking on January 7th on the Fox News broadcast, Vice President J.D. Vance said that ICE will be going door to door in the coming months as agents carry out President Donald Trump's plans for the largest mass deportation in history. Federal agents say they've now gotten about 22,000 agents and investigators, up from 10,000 a year ago. So these ICE agents are gonna be sent from door to door, rounding people up, rounding up, mainly the Northern Kingdom, because Israel is always the main target of Esau Edom, and he always uses, mass immigration and, crackdowns on crime as a way to put his foot down on Jake's neck. So it's gonna happen, man. Civil wars, race wars, all of these things are gonna happen, man. And in these days to come, we have to be moving, with our head on the pivot, watching everything that's going on around us because shit is about to get real out here. This is Ephesians chapter 5 and 15. It says, Salaki, it says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. We are indeed in some evil ass days. Where people are crashing out for no reason at all. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers just wake up one day and decide to just shoot up a whole mall, a school. You know what I'm saying? Running people over. People are literally losing their minds. Inflation is whooping their ass. They can't pay their bills, the mortgage. And they just see the world just crumbling down around them. And these militias, man, they know, you know what I'm saying, that eventually these Babylonians that are slowly losing their mind are going to rise up, and eventually, actually start going after these different militias, man. So Esau Edom, Nero 47 is going to enforce martial law at some point, hopefully in the coming weeks, man, Lord willing. Because we ready to get the hell up out of this place, man. And the only way for that to happen is if these, brutal prophecies come to pass, man. Let's get Isaiah chapter 19 and verse 1. And it says, the burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, which, America today represents the modern, Egypt, so to speak, the modern day Sodom and Egypt. It's also, the Rome 2.0, the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, all those kingdoms combined, that's Babylon the Great today, from the idolatry, the idol worship, to the traditions, the annual pagan festival holidays, like Christmas, which hails from the Roman pagan tradition called Saturnalia. All these kingdoms wrapped up in one is Babylon the Great. So this is the modern Egypt, and this is the prophecy that will befall it. It says, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight, everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. So what are Egyptians versus other Egyptians? That's civil war. A divide within the country. When you have one group of people with different beliefs and ideologies, warring against another group of people with separate ideologies, they go against their core beliefs, which leads to what? Disagreements eventually leads to war. You'll have two men arguing about, having a minor disagreement. It's only, so many words, that people can use until eventually, hands and feet start getting thrown, man. Until somebody starts getting beat up. And that's what's going to happen out here in Babylon the Great. Eventually people are just going to lose their fucking mind. And it's going to spill out into the streets. Race wars, civil wars, class wars. Jacob versus Esau. You know what I'm saying? Fucking ICE versus the Northern Kingdom versus Esau, Northern Kingdom versus Jake. You know what I'm saying? And while all this is going on, the elites, the rich, the international bankers, that these Babylonians, are now identifying as the problem, they're not even going to be able to get to them because they're going to be, safely hidden in a luxurious underground bunker. You know what I'm saying? Well, while these people are ripping each other to shreds on the surface. Let's get 2 Ezra 14 and verse 14. It says, let go from thee mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, and put off the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. So, going back to, the men of the Lord and the conduct we're supposed to have, in these times, we're supposed to cast off all the mortal carnal thoughts about, what things could befall us and what we can see in front of us. You know what I'm saying? How these people are going to act. These people are going to crash out. But us as the men of Yahweh Bashim Shai, we're supposed to set aside all the carnal fleshly thoughts and keep pushing forward and believing on the Lord. The Lord told us, man, in Matthew, what is it? Matthew, the 6th chapter, and let's see, 16. Bear with me. Yeah, here it is. Matthew 6:25, it says, therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, and what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than the raiment, is not the life more than the meat, and the body than the raiment. So in these times, man, we have to fully depend upon Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. You know what I'm saying? To put on the whole armor of God. Spiritually speaking, put on the armor. You know what I'm saying? Gird up the shield. And endure. And to the end, Lord willing, like it says in Matthew 24, he that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. Verse 26, behold, the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are not ye much better than they? So, if the Lord feeds the sparrows, if they always end up getting their meal without having the ability to, to sow or grow their own food, the Lord is going to keep his men safe in these times, man. But everybody else, this was going to happen to them. Verse 15, Salakia, 2nd Ezra 14 and verse 16, it says, for yet greater evils than those which thou hast seen shall happen. Salakia, for greater evils than those which thou hast seen happen shall be done hereafter. For look how much the world shall be wicked through age. So much more shall evils increase upon them that dwell therein. And the them is referring to the wicked. Because when these pestilences and these different, diseases come, the war, famine, the sword, all of those things, we have to recognize that all of those things are for the wicked and the wicked only. They're not for us. Now, are we going to face some trials? Are some of us going to have to, die from what we believe? Yes, according to prophecy. But it will only be to glorify the name of Yahweh Bashim Shai, and the dead in the Mashiach will be the first to rise, man. But, but for the rest of these people, for that Jake, they got shot by that ICE agent while celebrating that New Year's folly. Evils are going to continue to increase upon the earth, man. And the same goes for all these people. Esau, Edom, these 2/3 and these heathen, man. But to end this off, let's go to 2nd Ezra, chapter 15, and verse 14. It says, woe to the world. It says, woe to the world and to them that dwell therein. The word woe means destruction. It says, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So there's going to be complete division amongst these Babylonians, man. They're not going to regard their kings nor princes, which, represents the politicians, the president and the vice president. They're not going to regard any of the higher ups of society, man. You know, it says, in all the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So whatever they have the power to do, they're gonna do it, man. It says, verse 17, a man, Salaki. Second Ezra 15 and 17, it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. You know, in a lot of that spoiling, you know, in you know what I'm saying, people's houses getting plundered of their possessions, a lot of that is going to be done by these troops, you know, these different militias, including ICE. You know, because when all hell breaks loose, man, what do you think these troops are gonna do? You know, you think that they're gonna continue to quote unquote keep the peace? They're not even keeping the peace now. You know, they rounded up all those people, including American citizens that had legal, you know, citizenship, and fucking took them over the border, man. So how much more when all hell breaks loose? They're gonna be robbing houses, you know, shooting people dead, just like that Jake that got shot on New Year's Day while celebrating that folly. You know, this is what's coming, man. Great tribulation and great evils is coming to Babylon the Great. You know, and we're in Jacob's trouble. We're in, you know, World War III as of right now. But that flame just has to be fully ignited. Once this reaches its climax, that's when shit's gonna get real, man. You know, so I hope this lesson was edifying. And with that, I want to give all honor, all glory, and all praises to Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai Bashim Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone GMS who rule well. Shalom, Kwam Sha'ala, Wa Ababa Ball. And I'll see you in the next lesson.